Hello guys, welcome. Today we're going to be dealing with the 360, 720, 1080, 1440 degrees flare. These can be used to make skirts, peplums or sleeve, and we're going to be going through a detailed tutorial of how to get these flares. So I believe that getting the background of some things, despite it being mathematical, is more helpful when you know where numbers come from. So let's get straight into doing this. I promise it's going to be super simple. So to begin with, we are dealing with a circle. Okay, so the area around this circle is called the circumference, and the distance from one side of the circle to the other, this is called the diameter. Okay, then the diameter has got a midpoint here at the middle of the diameter. This is the radius. This is what we're going to be looking for, and it can be at any of these sides. Okay, so this radius is what we're going to be looking for. Let me just label this the radius. Okay, so finding the radius enables you to find a quarter of a circle. 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. So this makes 360. So finding the radius helps you to find this quadrant of the circle circumference. So it gives you one equal part of a circumference. And remember, I would have folded this into 4. This now brings us to this formula. Circumference is equal to 2 pi r, which is radius. And this is what is needed as long as you're making anything with a flare. This 2 stays here. The pi is a number which doesn't change. It is 22/7. In decimal, it is 3.142. Okay? Then radius is what we look for. So when you multiply the 2 times 3.142, that is where you get your 6.284. That's where this number comes from. So to find the circumference, my waist circumference is 32 inches. We're going to be working with my actual measurement. Then the length of your peplum or skirt should be here. So I'll use 5 inches. We'll be dealing with a peplum for the sake of fabric. So my circumference will need to be divided by 6.284. So how do we get the radius? Circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So we're going to divide the 2 pi, this side and this side, so that radius is equal to circumference divided by 2 pi, which is 6.284, and that will always be the same number. So I get my 32 inches, which is my waist circumference, then divide by 6.284. Then I'm adding 2 inches to my waist for zipper and sewing allowance. So we're going to divide 34 divide by 6.284, and this gives me 5.4 inches. So this will be our radius. This radius will help us find one quadrant of a whole circle. So for the full length of your skirt or peplum, add the length, which is 5 inches, plus the radius, which is 5.4, giving me 10.4, and measure from here to here. Make sure 10.4 is there. Then also measure this side to make sure it's going up to 10.4. Then where the 10.4 ends, you can fold your fabric. This helps you to know how much fabric you're going to need when making the flare. So I'll go ahead and mark the radius like this. This is for the 360 degrees peplum or skirt. I'll connect these lines. Then I'll measure the full length, which is 10.4, of which I added the length and the radius. This is because when you subtract the radius from the length, it will now give you the actual length, right? So when you get to measure this piece, it will measure 5 inches, which was the length of the peplum or whatever you're making skirt. So this is measuring 5 inches. So this is a full circle, as you can see. For our 360 degrees, it doesn't have much gathers, as you can see, doesn't seem to have much pleats. So you open one side and you can attach your zipper allowance there. So I measured this and it gave me 34 inches. Okay, so this was for the 360 degrees. We move forward to the 720 degrees flare. So here we're working with two 360 degrees, right? So I get my circumference plus 2 inches, which gives me 34. 2 inches is our allowance. So I'm going to divide 34 divided by 2, which will give me 17. This is because we're going to divide my waist circumference into two separate pieces, which are going to be 360 degrees flare. So we are going to need half of each part. So I'm going to divide this by 6.28, and this will give me 2.7 inches. Okay, so as I said, we're working with two 360 plus 360, which gives us 720. Alright, so from here we get the radius plus the length to get the total length that will be needed, which is 7.7 inches. This is for the 720 degrees, and this will help us get the amount of fabric which will be needed. So measure 7.7 here and 7.7 here. Mark this point and fold the fabric like this. Then we use the radius to get one equal part of one quadrant of the circle. Then the radius here, which is the full length, which is 7.7, will be used here. 7.7, 7.7. When you subtract this from the radius, when you subtract 7.7 from the 2.7, you remain with the 5 inches, which is the length of your peplum or skirt. So here is how it looks like. As you can see, it seems to be like half of the full circle skirt. So I'm going to need 2 of these. So each of these pieces is having a circumference of 17 inch. One will be joined at an allowance of 1 inch, then the other open part will be the zip allowance. So this is how the 720 looks like. Then now we go to the 1080 degrees. So this one needs 3 separate pieces of 360 degrees flare. So 360, 360, 360, giving us 3 pieces of the 360 degrees flare, each getting 1/3 of the circumference. So we'll go back to my circumference, which is 32 plus 2 inches sewing allowance and zipper allowance will be added to make it 34. Then the waist circumference is going to be divided into 3 equal parts, like this. So you divide this, which will give us 11.3 inches. My waist is going to be divided into 3 equal parts since we're going to have 3 separate 360 degrees flares. So 11.3 divided by 6.284, and this will give us our radius of 1.8 inches. 1.8 inches. I've just rounded that off to 1.8. And to get the total length, we're going to get the radius plus the length, which is 5 inches, plus the radius, which is 1.8 inches. This will give us 6.8 inches. Okay, so if you were to subtract this, the radius from this to 6.8, you still get the 5 inches. So we're going to measure the total amount of fabric, which is 6.8 inches here and 6.8 inches here, to know the amount of fabric you're going to need. And this will be like the full length which will be needed. Then from here, having measured, this is measuring 6.8, is close to 6.8. We're going to put the radius, which is 1.8 inches. So mark the 1.8 inches there. Then you can go ahead and join. After this, you mark the full length, which is 6.8 inches. So 6.8, 6.8. Okay, then you can join that. So this distance will give us 5 inches when we cut out the radius. So we're going to cut this out, and we're going to cut 2 more pieces to have 3 separate 360 degrees flares. So here they are. These are 3, and I've cut out the radius, and as you can see, each of this piece is measuring a circumference of 11.3 inches. Then you can go ahead and join them each at an allowance of 1 inch. So when you join them, they seem to look like this. Okay. Then we go to the 1440 degrees flare. So we do the same thing, guys. This means 4 parts of 360 degrees flare. 4. So we're going to get your circumference again, your waist circumference, and divide it by 4. Okay. Each 360 should make up 1/4 of the 34 degrees, and this gives us 8.5 inches. So 8.5 divided by 6.284 gives us the radius of 1.4 inches. Of course, I'm rounding off the numbers. So the total, we're going to get the 5 inches plus the radius. So 5 inches plus 1.42 which will give us 6.4 inches. So the same thing, we measure the 6.4 inches here and here, then you make the fold, then you get your radius. My radius is 1.4, so mark 1.4 inch here. So you get to notice that the circles get smaller as we get to the bigger flares. This is to accommodate the other pieces, right? Because we can't have the same circumference used in the 360 degrees, would have excess. And just join that, then mark the 6.4 inches. All right, and we have four equal parts now. And I'm just going to cut out the radius, and here's how it turned out.